Welcome to the IdahoSports.com football preview 4A edition. I'm Will Hoenike, joined by Matt Harris, Paul Kingsbury, getting you ready for the 4A classification of the Idaho State football season, which kicks off shortly here on IdahoSports.com. Let's take a look at last year's state playoff bracket, won by the venerable Tim Brennan and Bishop Kelly, reaching the state championship and winning again. All they seem to do at BK is find ways to win. They do have the unusual situation this year. They're the only classification. They're the only conference. The 4A SIC, they actually have two defending state champions as a result of some classification changes, both Bishop Kelly and Emmett playing in the 4A SIC this year. And then you throw in Skyview, you throw in Middleton. Man, the 4A SIC looks deep this year.
No, it really is. And one thing we talked about 2 years ago in the classification cycle when Emmett went down to the 3A SRV was their numbers were already back where they needed to be for 4A. So they kind of hid out in the 3A for a couple of years before they came back to the 4A. They win state. They come back to 4A, and now they're in the same conference, like you mentioned, as 3 times in a row, 4 times since 2010, state champion Bishop Kelly. You know, this has happened before, Matt, over in eastern Idaho.
That's right. When Shelley moved up to 4A for the start of the 2010-2011 season, that's when they actually went into Blackfoot's conference, at the time the 4A High Country Conference, and you had 2 teams, previously state champions from the year before, now in the same conference. Of course, that year, Blackfoot went to the state championship and played Bishop Kelly. They fell to Bishop Kelly in 2010, so it's not unprecedented, but it's quite rare.
It's cool to see.
It's very cool to see. It's a different dynamic that you just don't see very often.
Paul, let's start with Bishop Kelly, if you will. Head coach Tim Brennan. Boy, not many coaches in the state of Idaho have ever really been more successful than this guy.
No.
But he brings back Bronson King as quarterback, Luke Burley as running back, Vince Singelman, Ben Ruby, Rex Irby. You know, they've won 3 straight state championships. You mentioned 4 in the last few years.
Right.
Doesn't appear to be a ton of drop-off at Nickus Ursa Field.
And those names that you mentioned are names that were they were in the articles in the Statesman after the game. You know, they were mentioned as, you know, big players in each one of those games. So it's not like those names they came up from JV this year. I mean, these are big-time names playing on in a big-time program. They could be right back there at the end of the year, end of the season.
And BK is always there, year in and year out. We talked about it. Tradition. You know, just a great tradition in that program. Year after year, they're always contending, and you know that they're going to give you the very best.
You mentioned household names coming back. Emmett winning the 3A state championship last year. They move up. They return 4 kids who were first-team All-State at the 3A level last year. And, you know, 3A, 4A, whatever, you're first-team All-State, you can play football.
You're a good player, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You've got, Luke Overton, Mark Aribio, Mitchell Maxfield, Spencer Keene. You know, and we're talking defense. It's a lot of defense. You know, we've got defensive lineman, linebacker, wide receiver, and defensive back. So the defense of the Huskies is going to be very stout, and they're going to need that when they play Bishop Kelly. I believe that's on 9/23, the 23rd of September. I want Idaho Sports to be there to webcast that game, and I want to be on it.
That'll be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, Matt, Ridgeview, the newest school, the Warhawks, named after the old World War II fighter plane. The Warhawks coming in this year. Tom DeWitt's the head coach. Just talk a little bit about, you know, new program. They're literally they're learning each other's names right now, going through practice. They come in and they play their opener against Boise on the 26th of August. Just talk about the challenges you face getting a program off the ground.
Well, first of all, they have a cool logo. If you have not seen
the
Warhawks logo, it's a great logo. You can look at it on IdahoSports.com. Just go to the Ridgeview School page. But when you start up a new program, and I've really seen this with Ridgeview, there is a lot of enthusiasm around this program in general. They are excited. Coach DeWitt's in just building it from the ground up the way that he feels it should be done. And I'm really excited to see what happens. Now, again, kind of like you mentioned, Will, they got to get used to each other. Now, there's some coming over from Valley View, you know, and getting used to a new school, getting used to a new system, and like you see anytime there's a new coaching change somewhere, except here, it's like a whitewash, just starting it out completely brand new offensive system, new defensive system, new coaches, new players, new everything. There's going to be growing pains. There always is, but that enthusiasm for the program, that can help you out just a little bit, and especially when things get when the going gets tough.
Well, and you look at brand new program. They didn't bring in some schlub from the sidelines to coach the team.
No, they did not.
I mean,
it's not the town dad.
No, he played guard for BSU in the mid '80s. You know, he assistant coached in Washington for 25 years, something like that. So they have a great coach coming in. A lot of those players, like you said, coming from Valley View, coming from a great coach there, Lane Coffin.
Yep.
One of the good guys. I mean, he's been friend of Idaho Sports for years when he was, back in Pocatello at Century.
Century.
So great coaching, and these kids are and that's what happens when you add a new school in a demographic area. They get split. They're, when Ridgeview plays Valley View, it's going to be friends playing friends. They played with them almost their whole lives, so it's fun.
And what's cool, too, is I've seen this on social media a bit. There's already a little bit of friendly taunting going on between the two schools.
There should be.
And, I mean, the season hasn't even started yet. School hasn't even started yet, and they're doing this. I think it's great to see it between those two schools and to establish a tradition right off the bat. And if you get the right guys in there, which I believe that they have, that's going to make Ridgeview football a lot of fun for the future, not only for the fans, but for those who get to play as well.
Valley View, you mentioned Lane Coffin. I just thought I'd throw this out there. How about this start to the season for the Valley View Falcons? At Twin Falls, home versus Nampa in the Battle of the Bell. At Skyview, home versus Bishop Kelly. There's weeks 1 through 4 for Valley View. It's going to be it's tough.
And you can look at the schedule and say, well, Skyview was 3-7 last year. They're not going to be 3-7 this year. Mm-hmm. Skyview is bringing back a lot of really good players. Young over there is doing a fantastic job bringing kids and getting them ready for the season. 3-7 is not going to happen to Skyview again. I mean, in years past, it's been, we have Skyview, and that's the way it's going to be this year. So, Valley View, tough first half of their schedule.
Mm-hmm. And keep your eye also on Middleton, another team. Bill Brock, been there for 17 years. He's got a good program going there. Now, we mentioned Emmett moving up in the 4A SIC. You go across the state to District 5-6. Matt, the story there, a couple of teams coming down. Idaho Falls dropping from 5A to 4A, and Skyline dropping from 5A to 4A.
Yeah, those two schools, they've been in some papers start to go flying here. Those two schools, they have been declining enrollment for the past few years. I mean, they've been at 5A for quite some time, and they're competing with Highland, some years Madison, recently Bonneville and Hillcrest as well. Idaho Falls went 0 for 9 last year. They were really young. They only averaged about a shade over 5 points per game. Gave up an average of about 48 points per game. This year they have some young talent coming up, and they're going to be young. Yeah. They're going to be inexperienced. They'll win a few games though. They're not going to win the conference, but they'll slowly build it up. Now, Skyline, on the other hand, that's a team that played very well at the 5A level, Will. They went to state. They lost to Capital in the first round. They've played every year they've made it to state under Scott Berger. They've had to play Capital in the first round, and Capital has beat them every time. Yep. Now you bring back pretty much the exact same talent.
7 all-conference kids back.
Yeah. You bring them back, minus a couple of very good secondary defenders, and you stick them in 4A, they're going to be a team to watch out. Now, you add them along with traditional power Blackfoot. Century made it to the state semifinals last year. Pocatello was an improving team. Preston is not going to go 0 for 9 this year. That could be a potentially very good conference, and I believe they get 3 berths to the state tournament this year.
Paul, Blackfoot opens with 3 straight games at home, Snake River, Hillcrest, Century. How important is that for them to be able to get off to a fast start?
Well, it's not just a fast start on paper. It's a fast start mentally as well. Yeah. You start off the season and you go 3-0, 2-1. You get the kids excited. You get them pumped for those. The next half of the season. You go into it 0-3. Morale starts going down. They start questioning things. It's not good. So those first 2-3 games of the season, regardless of who you're playing, is so important.
Whether they're home or whether they're road,
doesn't matter.
Got to get off to a fast start.
And they've got a 4-year starter now in Payson Hayes. He started halfway through his freshman season. He is now in his senior year for Blackfoot. He's going to do good things for Stanbuck. He had kind of a subpar year last year, had some trouble with his accuracy with his throws, but he's got a good senior cast coming back. He's got Connor Robinson is back, Jager Levitt, Nathan Colvin on the defensive side. They have some good experience, and Stanbuck coach teams are going to be very, very good. Blackfoot could certainly be a contender this year.
Right.
Moving over to the 4A Great Basin West, you've got a lot of experienced coaches in that division when you're talking about Jed Thomas at Burley, Sean Impemeni at Canyon Ridge, Sid Gambles has been at Jerome for a few years, Tim Perigo has been at Minico since Minico was invented. Alan Reynolds has done a tremendous job at Twin Falls, and then Kevin Stilling doing a good job up at Wood River. It's a good staff up there at Wood River in general. A lot of good coaches in that division.
It is, and Coach Stilling up there at Wood River is really excited about one player in particular, Turner Maza. He's coming in very excited. Plus, they've got 13 starters back. 12 of them have been starting since their sophomore year. Mm-hmm. Wood River has always been – they're not part of the Magic Valley. They abhor the thought that people think that they're part of the Magic Valley. Mm-hmm. They're the Wood River Valley.
Wood River Valley.
Don't confuse the two.
Two very different areas.
And plus they're the Wolverines. Wolverines, my favorite in the world. But, Coach Stilling up there's got to be excited. You have that many starters coming back that have been starting since their sophomores, really? Then you have an incoming guy, like Maza at running back. watch out for Wood River this year.
And they pushed Century in their first-round game of the 4A state playoffs this last year. That was one of the best games I saw last year at Holt Arena between those two. That was a great game. You could see the potential there in that team, and a lot of, like you said, a lot of them coming back.
Yeah.
They could have a really good year in the Great Basin Conference.
And I'll say this for Wood River: if you have never been to Wood River High School for one of their games, there are not many scenes, if you will, better than Wood River High School for a game. Let's talk a little bit about Hoenike. They're a team that has really run this conference for a number of years. They've been a very strong program for a number of years as well. Twin Falls has jumped back into the picture and really made this a 2, 3, maybe even 4-team battle in the Great Basin Conference.
You know, and back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, you know, Twin Falls was the powerhouse. Hoenike in there as well. In fact, I think Twin Falls was 5A.
They were 5A at that point.
So Hoenike, you know, we talked about those first 2-3 games of the season, or how they're so important. Hoenike is the same way. They've got that rivalry game against mini Cassia rivalry game against Burley early on in the season. Burley 2-7 last year. You know, remains to be seen how they're going to improve this year. But you know, Hoenike coming out of the Rumble with a win, even though it's an quote unknown team that they're going to be playing over there, it's still coming out with a win in a big game at Holt. It's not going to be on Idaho Sports. That makes it 10 times bigger than it normally would be.
Of course.
So coming out of that, getting that momentum going will really help them as they move into their season.
The ultimate wild card division in the 4A is the Inland Empire League up north. Just 3 teams in that classification: Lakeland, Moscow, Sandpoint. So you've only got 2 conference games to schedule. You get these teams like a Sandpoint, like, you know, any of them really.
Yeah.
You're scrambling to fill a schedule, and as a result, you maybe are a little bit unknown because you're playing teams that you know, people don't know, people don't see. How tough is that for both, not only for a Lakeland or a Moscow to prepare for teams that they're not seeing every day, they're not dealing with every day, but then the rest of the state may be looking up there going, well, man, how good is Sandpoint? How good is Lakeland?
Right. And you know, we talked about playing out of state. Those 3 teams have 12 non-Idaho games between the two, so averaging for half their schedule. They average half their schedule playing outside of the state of Idaho, not even other Idaho teams, just out of the state. So you never know, you know, what you're going to get with that. Lakeland, Moscow, each had 1 win last year. Sandpoint came out 8-4. You know, the top dog. You know, go in state championship. Going into this year, do I see anything different happening? Maybe. Is Moscow, you know, that much improved? Possibly. Lakeland, they're always fun to watch. I love the Hawks up there. And so, even though last year, you know, there was so much that the scale was tipped so heavily towards Sandpoint, it's going to be fun to watch.
Matt, Moscow is one of those programs you keep waiting for them to break through.
Right.
They'll kind of bubble up. They'll kind of bubble up, and you wait for them to have that breakthrough year where maybe they go 8-2 and make a run in the state playoffs. And how close are they to maybe doing that?
You know, I mean, it's tough when you're coming off of a season like they just had because morale isn't exactly there. And, I mean, you just have to take it as a mindset of, okay, it's a fresh season. We're going to start over again. Let's start rebuilding things. Things didn't work out for us last year. Let's see what they do this year. Now, of course, Sandpoint, they've got a new head coach, George Yarno, who's there. Came up from Highland, I believe. He was worked on the Highland coaching staff.
Not a bad resume.
Not at all.
And played Division I football at Nevada and then Idaho State.
Right. And so, I mean, they will have a fresh start. So, I mean, they also graduate a few kids as well. A lot of kids from that team that went to the state championship. So this conference might be a little bit more wide open overall. I mean, you mentioned Lakeland. They had 1 win last year.
Right.
And kind of like you said, we just kind of really don't know what you get from the up north schools. But for Moscow, I mean, it's a great opportunity for them to start over again, to try to get back on track, and to see if they can snag that berth. It wasn't too long ago that they had made it to the, I believe it was the state quarterfinals, state semifinals of the 4A classification.
Lakeland, 3 all-conference players returning, all on defense. Josh Brandt and Jared McDaniel, the linebackers, Dylan Vahey, the defensive back. That bodes well to have 3 good players like that coming back on defense.
Yeah, absolutely. When you have those players coming back, those are the guys who can set the tone for the defense. They can teach the other guys. Right. They can lead them around them. You need to have those solid guys on every wave of the defense. And if you can have them and they can really affect the play of those around them just by their own leadership style, by how hard they work, not only on the field but in practice and whatnot.
Well, absolutely. And it's not just about playing good defense and getting a tackle. It's about getting that turnover and getting the ball back into the hands of their offense. You know, more More times your offense has the ball, better chance you have of scoring. So that defense has to be focused on getting those turnovers.
Exactly. Getting off the field on third down will be big for them. Yep. Give their offense a chance to be able to do something with the football to put some points on the board.
Time now. This is my favorite part of the show. I get to put these two guys on the spot, our 4A on-the-spot teams. Paul, we're going to start with you.
All right.
Who's a team that we're not talking about in the 4A classification that maybe we should be talking about a little bit more?
And it's a team we talked about actually a little bit, and they didn't talk about them a lot. Twin Falls. Twin Falls, we mentioned up, down, up, down. They were here forever. Twin Falls, Alan Reynolds, 9th season. What a great job he's done in the island that is the Magic Valley. In between Pocatello and Boise, they are in and of themselves that island. 40 points a game last year. That's a good offense. 9.6 points allowed. Great defense.
Yeah.
So coming in this, they were 7-3 last year, but they returned their quarterback Zach Molina.
He's a good quarterback.
And when I see a team returning a senior quarterback, my eyes light up because there's leadership there. There's a guy that's not worried about, if I miss this throw, is the coach going to, yell at me? He's confident. He has that swagger, so to speak.
Well, and he's got a year facing fire, if you will, in the system. You're not having to worry about how he's going to respond when the lights get turned on.
Now, he also has guys to throw to. He's got 2 senior wide receivers, Tommy Trumbull and Peyton Richardson, and a running back in Contreras. So he's got everything. He's got a great running back. He's got 2 wide receivers he can throw to. On defense, they need to step up. Just like anything, if you got a great offense, doesn't matter if they don't have the ball. They need to step up, pressure the other offense, get the ball back into their hands, and the secondary has got to be huge. Senior Chris Webb, he has to step up big in that secondary.
I read in the Times News the other day that they have a concern about their offensive line and being able to protect the quarterback as well, and that's so huge, and you don't even really think about it because it seems like the guys on the offensive line don't get any glory whatsoever, but they play arguably the biggest role in the game so they can allow your offense to operate. That is going to be a big, big key for Twin Falls. Of course, they had Cole Bailey last year, now at Boise State, who was a big factor on the offensive line. All-state player, exactly. And, I mean, you lose his lead, not only his play, but his leadership as well.
Right.
Who's going to step up and replace that? Should be very interesting to watch Twin Falls.
Now, Matt, you may have already tipped your hand when it comes to a potential sleeper team, and it's primarily because they weren't in the 4A classification last year.
Right, Skyline. They could bring, I think we previously mentioned, this 7 all-conference players that they bring back. This is a very, very good team that I don't think a lot of people are really talking about when it comes to this, like you said, Will, because they were in 5A last year. They played a 5A schedule. Now, here's something to remember. They went 7-3 overall. They were undefeated for more than half of the season against 5A competition. It wasn't until they played Highland and Madison that they finally picked up their first 2 losses of the year. Then they beat Idaho Falls in the Emotion Bowl, and then they went to the state playoffs and lost to Capital. But a lot of returning starters. You got Bridger Taylor. David Ames is David Ames III, I should say, excuse me. He's a very, very special player. Carson Lott, little bit on the smaller side. He's only a 6-foot wide receiver, but man, he can go up and catch the ball. He is a great wide receiver for them. I mean, the move to 4A legitimately opens up state championship opportunities for them, and finally a chance for them to not have to play Capital in the first round of the state tournament so they can move on. I mean, they have been very, very disciplined under Scott Berger, who's done an excellent job now in his 8th season at Skyline. Through the air, on the ground, they're very balanced. They hope to achieve that balance once again this year. I mean, their game on October the 6th at Blackfoot could potentially be a conference championship preview or a conference championship game, if you want to call it that. That's going to be a very, very good game between 2 teams who could legitimately contend for a state title.
And this is my Captain Obvious comment of the preview here, but when you get teams going from 5A moving down to 4A, it's such a huge difference between going from 3A to 4, because going from either way, your numbers are relatively close to what they were. They just happen to go above or below the threshold. But you're going up against opponents that are either have those numbers have been playing against the competition, or like a Skyline, you're moving down to the 4As, which have been playing the 4A competition. So going 5A to 4A, that first year or 2 is really your window of opportunity. If you could take advantage of that, it could be a state tournament.
Now you're facing schools that are drawing from 100, 150 less students to put together a team.
Well, and we saw that with Emmett when they dropped down to 3A for a couple of years, the past 2 years. I mean, they were in the state semifinals the first year they were down. They won the state championship last year. And then you look at 4A East Idaho. So you got Skyline and IF coming down. Century and Pocatello, they're still very good teams. They still have they're on the higher echelon of the enrollment. And then you look at Preston; they're kind of near the bottom, the lower threshold. And then you've also got Blackfoot, who's kind of in the middle there. So it's a window of opportunity. I like how you put it that way, Paul. A window of opportunity for Skyline here, and they've got a good senior cast. This could be their year if they're going to do it, but they've probably got to do it this year too.
Right.
Twin Falls, Skyline. I'll put myself on the spot. Middleton. Don't sleep on
Never sleep on a Bill Brock coach
Yep.
team.
Let's take a quick time out here on IdahoSports.com, the 4A preview. When we come back, we're going to talk classification changes. Also, some things changing, some things staying the same with IdahoSports.com. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Check out my multi-movie simulation station.
Why wouldn't you just take Cable One's new Ultimate TV experience powered by TiVo? It's a whole home DVR that lets you record 4 HD shows at once. Cool. Cable One, it's just common sense.
Some people go the extra mile. Your Northwest Toyota dealer goes the extra 25,000 miles. They give you 2 years or 25,000 miles of no-cost maintenance and 24-hour roadside assistance. It's called Toyota Care, and it's included with every new Toyota. That means wherever you are, you'll be prepared for anything. Get Toyota Care no-cost maintenance and roadside assistance at your Northwest Toyota dealer today. The best in the Northwest. Toyota, let's go places.
Valleywide Cooperative is a locally owned farm supply cooperative committed to meeting the needs of its customers since 1920. We provide you products and services of the highest quality. We are found serving our customers throughout southern Idaho, eastern Oregon, western Wyoming, and other neighboring states. We provide agronomic products and services, bulk feed and petroleum, competitive services in our propane division, and a vast array of products in our Valley Country store locations. Let us help you. Come see us today at the Valleywide Cooperative.
Here come the last of the 2016s.
Stylish Prius, sporty Camry, adventurous RAV4, they're all here. But not for long. Come in and get the 2016 Toyota you want before they are gone.
Toyota, let's go places. It was our dream to move out here. I just wasn't sure what she would think. Took her away from her friends, asked her to do twice the work of most kids her age. But through it all, she never gave up. On me or anything else. Wonder where she learned that. Massey Ferguson, the last tractor you'll ever need.
Welcome back to the IdahoSports.com preview. We're talking a little 4A football today, just closing in on opening kickoff August 26th. Can't believe we're already almost there. I am Will Hoenike. I'm joined right now by Matt Harris and by Paul Kingsbury. One of the big themes in 4A this year, guys, is their classification changes, and it's not that the volume of them is immense. You know, we don't have 30 new 4A teams or anything, but it's key teams. You know, 3A defending state champion Emmett going up. You have a couple of teams going down in District 5 and 6. It's so tough to really get a good grasp of a classification until you've seen those teams playing at that level.
Yeah, there's a bit of an adjustment period, especially for both. You see teams that move up, teams that move down. You're going to see a little bit difference in the talent level, especially if you're moving up more so than down. But, I mean, in eastern Idaho, you have IF and Skyline going down. And then you have Rigby moving up to 5A, so they're no longer 4A. Then you get out to the Treasure Valley area. You've got Ridgeview being created as a new school and coming off of Valley View. So Valley View and Ridgeview now 4A. Then you have Emmett moving up as well. So, I mean, you have a wholesale and CUNA moving up to 5A.
Right.
So you've got about a wholesale addition of 3 schools overall to 4A to what was the smallest classification in the past couple of classification cycles. And again, for the classification changes, this happens, every so often, but you're going to see more teams starting to move up and down. And we kind of talked about this when it comes to the 1As, as jobs and whatnot move, you're going to have certain areas will grow faster, other areas will slowly get smaller. And that's just kind of the natural flow of it all.
Yeah, Paul, unfortunate reality. of any state. This isn't something that's unique to Idaho. You're always going to have a couple of schools that are sitting right about that line where, you get a big freshman class, you bounce up for a couple of years, then you get a small freshman class, and you go down for a couple of years. Really, almost no way to avoid it, really.
There's not. And a classic example of that is Shelley High School. Every year it was Shelley, Fruitland. Then Shelley went 4A, and Fruitland went, oh, thank you. Finally get them out of there. And then they go back down, Coach Q-Ball goes over to Century, and he's doing a fantastic job over there.
Yep. We're allowed to call him that. It's okay, people.
Good
Don't
friend
get
of
mad.
the program. Yes. Century's, one of those teams we didn't talk about, but they're poised to be big too. But those teams that go up and down like that, like you said, there wasn't a lot this year, but even. It's always fun to watch and who they are and keep an eye on to see how they do after that change is made. Is Skyline going to take advantage of that window?
Right.
How's Emmett going to compete after being a 3A champion now with Bishop Kelly and in the 4A as a whole? Watching those little things is what makes high school football so fun. If you're just focused on your one team, great. But expand your horizons a little bit and look at the state. Look at the intricacies of what high school football is. That's what's fun. That's what we love about this job.
You guys mentioned Emmett. You go from being one of the biggest 3A schools in Idaho to one of the smallest 4As, where now Emmett, on basically a week-in, week-out basis, is going to be playing teams that are pulling from much larger pools of kids.
Right.
And that's just something that they're just going to have to deal with. They're just going to have to adjust to it. I know that they probably would have preferred to stay at 3A. I mean,
Maybe.
It's fun to be a big dog or a big fish in a small pond, big dog as well. But
doggy paddles.
Yeah, but I mean,
big dog in a small pond, you can just walk.
I guess that works. But that's something too that It's with establishing the tradition. It's with establishing the program. I mean, you could be the smallest team in 4A, but if you have the best tradition, it doesn't matter because you have the best players. And regardless, you're going to have to play those teams anyways if you want to win the title. So, I mean, there's an adjustment period, but for some schools, it's faster than others.
And for some of those schools, too, you may wind up with a nice little chip on your shoulder, which is
right.
a coach.
Not a bad thing.
You don't hate that.
That's
If you can get a little motivation for the kids, you don't hate it. So we've got change in the 4A classification as far as teams going up, teams going down. A little bit of a change here at IdahoSports.com going into the season in regards to the state tournaments. Past the exclusive home for all video webcasts of the state tournaments. A change this year, though we still will be involved in all the state tournaments.
We do. As you mentioned, people have come to know IdahoSports.com as the place to go at state tournament time for all of your state high school webcasts. And we've done thousands and thousands over the years. This year, a change was made. The Idaho High School Activities Association Board of Directors moved in a different direction. It happens in business. That's fine. And another company took over the video rights. Last week, we actually secured the audio streaming rights. In the years past, we always had the two together. This time, they're split. So IdahoSports.com will be the sole possessor of the audio streaming rights for state tournaments. Now, we won't be doing as much as we did with the video. It doesn't make a lot of sense to do audio for some games as it does for video.
Some sports don't translate as well on a audio only.
Exactly.
Things,
So we'll be doing as many games as we can for football in the football tournament. We'll be doing as many games as we can during that tournament with video, but for games that we can't, it'll be audio only. Now, state basketball comes around, all 132 games like we've always done, audio only. Now, a big question that we're getting is, well, how does this affect mom and pop radio? How does it affect the small radio stations coming down? It doesn't. We have nothing to do with radio. The radio have their own arrangement between the school and the IHSAA. Now, if that radio station wants to stream the game on their website as well as terrestrial radio, that's when we step in and there's a discussion needs to happen. But as far as radio station coming into town like they have for the last 60 years,
nothing changes.
Nothing. And since we've held the audio and video rights for the last 10 years anyway, these radio stations are used to this anyway, and they're looking at this going, what's the big deal? It's the same thing.
One thing that the bigger classifications are going to have to get used to, as long as I've been around Idaho sports, there's been a mercy rule in 8-man football. There is now a mercy rule in all football in Idaho, and Matt, why don't you tell people what that entails?
Yeah, briefly, from 2A through 5A, once the 40-point threshold is reached, starting at halftime or at any point in the second half, that's when you're now going to have basically a running clock come into effect overall. There's a couple of times where that clock will stop, however. Injury timeouts, you've got officials timeouts, coaches timeouts, and any time a team scores. Other than that, the clock will run. And I think it's good mainly because you allow, instead of having a huge blowout and the clock's still stopping and the game's over, and you all know it, but you're still having to finish the game, get those second stringers, get those third stringers in there, get them some experience, let the kids participate, and let everyone else be able to move on with the game, with their lives, essentially, instead of having to stay there the whole time.
And we've talked about it. It doesn't happen as much in the 5A, 4A, 3A, 2As as it does in 8-man football. It's a bigger field, it's opened up, fewer kids, but it does happen once in a while. And when it does happen, I think it's neat. I think it's a great change for the state of Idaho. Kudos to the board of directors for implementing this change. I think it's going to be good for the sport when the situation arises.
Yep.
Starting on August 26th, the video webcast portion of our schedule kicks off. The regular season doesn't change. Audio state tournaments, but during the regular season, we've got the video webcast starting the Rocky Mountain Rumble down at Holt Arena. We've got a number of good 4A, 5A games on the slate. Tell us a little bit about the games that are going to kick us off, Paul.
All right, on the 26th, opening weekend, right around the corner, isn't it, guys?
Oh, yeah.
Aberdeen American Falls, great matchup there. Capital Bora, South Fremont Gooding. Great matchup from last year's state tournament.
They don't love each other.
No love lost between those two.
Not a lot of hugs before the game. No, not a lot of hugs. Snake River Blackfoot, another one where there's not going to be a lot of hugs before the game. Right. Timberline Emmett, going to be a good 5A, 4A matchup there. Cuna Bishop Kelly, rivals in the 4A. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of hugging going on in opening weekend.
And with Cuna moving up to 5A now too, so I mean that'll make it an intriguing matchup as well.
Yes, it will. Moscow Grangeville. We have a broadcast team up in District 2 now. Brandon actually is who we've got up there. So Grangeville at Moscow will be hitting. Shelley, Snow Canyon, Utah. It's the Rocky Mountain Rumble. Matt and crew will be there. Rocky Mountain versus Pleasant Grove, Utah. Now on the 27th, Saturday, these games are all Rocky Mountain Rumble. Skyview Box versus Box Elder, Utah. Rigby versus Syracuse, Utah. Highland versus Lewiston. That's going to be a great 5A matchup. We talked about that in the 5A preview. And Minico versus Stansbury, Utah. So a lot of games opening weekend. We're excited to be everywhere, as many places as we can be. Keep your eye on the schedule. We've kind of scheduled a few weeks in advance, about half the season. We'll be adding more games as they come along. So keep checking that broadcast schedule.
Yeah, IdahoSports.com, your home for game schedules. Not only football, soccer's on there, volleyball's on there, pretty much you name it. We've probably got it there, along with our game stream schedule. Don't forget our action photographers and all that fun as well. You want to engage us on social media? Here's how you do it. We're available on Twitter at Idaho Sports. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We actually tried a little bit of the Facebook Live when we were preparing for this show on there. Might be preparing for that, using that tool a little bit more going forward. Hopefully not when my big old orbital dome is in the picture.
Especially when your big old orbital dome is in the picture.
Well, at least you can't say I'm like a popsicle, a pumpkin on a popsicle stick. Is that what it is?
There's no popsicle stick involved.
No, not unless you string several of them together. That's about as good as it gets. So that's the social media empire.
Pot, kettle, black, yes.
There's the IdahoSports.com social media empire. Please join us on there. It's much more fun when we're not just talking to each other. Would like to send a special thank you to Lauren and Tyson. They're helping us off-site right now, off-camera. You can't see them. We wouldn't be here doing this without them, or we would actually be far less entertained. And God bless Tyson for bringing the donuts. Got us off to a good start this morning. Absolutely. We're doing one of these 5A down to 1A Division 2. You name the classification, we've got it, so keep your eyes open. If you've got interest in other classifications, you're able to watch those as well. We'd like to send a special thank you also Greg Carpenter and the staff here at Hoenike High School, allowing us to shoot these preview shows here. He's Matt Harris. He's Paul Kingsbury. I'm Will Hoenike. We'll see you on August 26th, opening night, IdahoSports.com. We'll see you then.